Welcome, witches, wizards, and muggles alike, to another enchanting episode of Magical Tales from the Slytherin Common Room, bringing your favorite Harry Potter fanfiction to audio format. So sit back, relax, and Accio headphones, and let the magic begin. Apostasy by Deydralinne, Chapter 27, 30 Hours. Her entire body tingled and ached as though it had been thrown into a pool of electric eels. She groaned and tried to displace some of the pain in her body. "Holy fuck, Granger, are you with me?" Theo gasped and stumbled over to whatever hard surface she was currently lying on. She tried to remember what had happened, but her brain was still trying to reboot. Her hand came up to her face and rubbed at it. "Yeah, I think so. What happened?" Her voice was hoarse and her throat hurt like it had been bruised from the inside out. It took a few attempts to try and open her eyes. They, like the rest of her body, were slow and sluggish, but eventually, when they finally managed to pry them apart, she was greeted by Theo's soft face hovering above her. His hair, which granted was normally a bit scruffy anyway, was a complete mess. He had darkish bluish-purple bags under his eyes, which were bloodshot and watery. He was pale and looked ready to drop on his feet. "You look like shit, Theo." She didn't mean to grumble, but the way her throat struggled around the words. A bit of scoff sounded from the other side of the room. "You should see yourself," Draco growled angrily. Hermione tried to move to see him clearly, but she had never felt so weak. Theo, seeing her struggle, helped her up. Draco was slumped into a love seat on the other side of the room. It was clinical, as if it might have belonged at St. Mungo's, but that wouldn't make any sense given the couch Draco was slumped in and the artwork on the walls that screamed Astoria. Draco looked as bad as Theo. His eyes were closed tight, and his hair was a mess, and his clothes were more tattered than Hermione had ever seen. The whole thing put her on edge. A nagging feeling that something wasn't right coiled in her stomach. She tried again to search her mind for information that would clue her in on what happened, but the fog was persistent. "Okay, what's going on?" Hermione asked, her concern mounting. "Do you remember going to Diagon Alley?" Theo asked gently. Hermione thought hard. It made her brain ache, but eventually parts of it came back to her, trickling in like a dripping tap. "The Order attacked. We went to defend it. There was a fire, and..." Seamus's face flashed in her mind. "I killed Seamus." After that, things became harder to visualize. She remembered feelings of panic and confusion, a brief image of Draco over her with his lips locked around her arm, and pain. Lots and lots of pain. Like he was biting her. No, he was sucking something from her arm. Poison? Poison from the hex that had landed because Ginny, she screeched, earning her a scowl from Draco at the sudden volume that echoed around the room. "Where is she?" She tried to climb off the bed, but Theo stopped her, pushing her back down as his eyes darkened a little. "I think not, Princess. You will stay there for now. Thank you very much." His tone matched the expression on his face. He wasn't fucking around, but neither was she. "Theo, get out of my fucking way. I need to see Ginny. Where is she?" She glared up at him. He looked tired, really fucking tired. How long had she been out? "She's not here," Draco snapped. His eyes locked on her like he might take her down himself if need be. "We're working on it, but if you don't lie the fuck down, Granger, let us do our jobs and do as you are told, then I'll curse you myself and just let you fucking die this time." A shiver ran down her spine at his words. "How bad was it?" Her voice betrayed her fears. "It was fine. I sucked it out in time." His tone clipped. "But your body's still recovering, so lie the fuck down." Hermione shook her head in dismissal. "Not me, you idiot. I'm clearly fine. Thank you, by the way. But I meant Diagon Alley. What damage was there? How many did we lose? Prisoners? Come on, Malfoy. I'm asking for a debrief here. I need all I can get here." Theo huffed a sour laugh. "Always working, right, Princess? I need to go let the others know you're awake. They've been waiting." His eyes darkened a little despite the smile on his face. "Stay in bed, Miney, or I'll have to stick you to it." Theo stumbled out of the room, leaving her with Draco, who was gawking at her as if she had told him that she was secretly Harry Potter in disguise. 4 shops were damaged in the fire, and 3 more were blown up. 17 civilian casualties. Tom has already issued a statement that marks the Order members as enemies of the state. He did a brilliant job of calming the uproar. You should be proud. Ginny was taken, but we're working on rectifying that. I couldn't tell you the names of anyone. I can't say I ever gave a fuck about any of your little Order buddies, and frankly, I was a little distracted. Theo wanted me to make sure you knew he took down 11 before your accident. Hermione looked at him, really looked at him. He looked as sickly as Theo had, and if it had been just him, then she might have been concerned. But for now, she put it down to the stress of it all. "Thank you, Draco. It was a risky thing to do what you did. It could have killed you." His eyes lacked the warmth that she had come to associate with them. He looked at her with such contempt that it made her uncomfortable. Was she missing something? He sighed deeply, rubbed his face with his hands, and when he looked at her again, his tone wasn't so much annoyed as exhausted. "Blaise is interrogating some of the prisoners. I should get to him, or else we might end up with no one to interrogate. Daphne is with him at the moment, and she sent word before that he's already killed 3 of them. I assume you won't take issue with my absence." He didn't bother waiting for a response, simply standing and slipping from the room, leaving her alone. Hermione didn't like that. It left her too much time to think about the fact that they had gotten Ginny. Who had her, and what did they want with her? The Order was a lot of things, but the only reason she was listening and staying in bed for now was the fact that they didn't believe in killing anyone, and they did not approve of torture. Yes, Seamus had nearly killed her, but she suspected that was more personal than Order approved. There was a soft knock at the door, and Astoria's head poked around the frame. "Hi, how are you feeling?" Her soft, sweet voice wrapped around Hermione like a blanket. "I brought you some soup if you want it." The petite little witch slipped into the room, a tray in hand. Hermione was more relieved to see a large glass of orange juice accompanying the bowl and smiled her appreciation before drinking the entire thing down, only to wince. It was already an effort to get her throat muscles to work around the words, but swallowing was harder. What the hell had happened to her throat? Maybe it was the smoke from the fire? "Thank you," Hermione smiled and spooned a few mouthfuls. "Tor, how long was I out?" Astoria was wearing different clothes than what she had last seen her in, and though she hated to admit it, the witch looked about as well as the 2 other housemates who had blessed her with their company so far. "Not quite 30 hours. The spoon dropped from Hermione's hand. 30 hours. 30 hours was far too long to have not found Ginny yet. Did anyone sleep at all in that time? It didn't seem so. What good was it doing anyone for her to be sitting here in bed, especially if everyone was running on fumes? "Nope, this is ridiculous," she muttered more to herself than Astoria. "I should be helping." "Hermione, you nearly died," Astoria exclaimed. "My best friend is missing. The key word in your sentence is nearly. It's not like I need to do anything strenuous, but I can help, Tor. I can't just sit here doing nothing. I can tell them who to question out of the prisoners, and Draco can use his Legilimens skills and speed the whole process up. If we wait too long, then they will move her, and it will take too long to find her again. Do you really want to see what Blaise will become if we let it get to that stage?" "It's not up to her, Granger. There's no need to sell your arguments to her," Daphne drawled from the doorway. "I'm not trying to sell anything to her, but this is pointless, and you know it. I'm not dead, and there's work to be done." Hermione gave a pointed look. "If it was Tor missing and everyone asked you to stay put, would you?" Daphne frowned at her. "Ginny might not be blood, but she's my sister, Daphne. You know she is, and you know that if it was you, you wouldn't stay sitting around here either." Daphne sighed heavily, looking seriously in contemplation between Astoria and Hermione for a moment. "They are going to be so pissed with me." Astoria gave Daphne a tight-lipped smile. "I'll distract Theo. Maybe I can trick him into getting some sleep. That will only buy you too long enough to get to the ministry, though. You're on your own with Draco." Hermione shook her head. "Blaise can help bypass him. He will be desperate to get Jin back. You have no idea," Daphne mumbled. "If I can get to him before I run into Draco, then maybe, just maybe, I won't end up stunned in a cell of my own." Astoria and Daphne stared at each other for a long minute before Daphne rolled her eyes. "You owe me for this, Granger. If I can help find Ginny, Daphne, I'll owe you 20. Hermione mumbled and threw her legs over the side of the bed. She ended up needing Daphne's help to stand up, to which the blonde rolled her eyes and muttered about this being a terrible idea. Astoria ruffled through the bedside table and recovered Hermione's wand. "Good luck," she whispered before slipping from the room. Daphne waited barely a minute before she helped Hermione down the hall. It turned out the room Hermione had been in was still in the chateau. Possibly another requirement for Astoria, or maybe it was the general medical treatment room for them in case they were injured on the field. The sound of Theo talking to Astoria and walking their way had Daphne pulling her into the closest room, which turned out to be not a room, but a closet. The way that Daphne moved with such silence should have terrified Hermione, but honestly, she was just constantly blown away by the abilities of everyone in the house. "I'm just so tired," Astoria's voice put on an air of helplessness. "I just think that if I lay there, then I'll start thinking about Jen and Hermione. Could you please just come lay with me for a little while, just till I fall asleep?" Astoria's pleading and pouting voice flitted past them. Surely Theo would be able to sense what was clearly manipulation in his wife's voice. Surely he would be able to sense that he was being played. "Anything for you, my love." Theo's voice carried back down the hall to where Hermione and Daphne remained in the cupboard. Hermione counted to 63 in her head before she was being led out of the cupboard and towards the kitchen. Pansy was whistling a sad tune to herself in the kitchen, the sounds of cups being shifted on the counter ringing around them in the air. But Daphne didn't pause this time. She carried on into the kitchen. Pansy took one look at Hermione and sighed. "That's the stupidest fucking deal I've heard today, and believe me, I have heard a lot of them. Draco is going to go spar." "Babe," Daphne groaned, "please. We need you to be ready, Pansy. If I get information, I'm not waiting and risking losing her forever. I need to know that you will be waiting to help if she needs medical attention," Hermione said defiantly. After getting a nod from the dark-haired beauty, she continued to pull Daphne from the house, her muscles finally starting to function within the normal range of stiffness. "Perhaps I'd better be the one to," the blonde's words dying as Hermione yanked them through the atmosphere, not bothering to fully materialize between jumps until they landed in the alleyway behind the ministry. "Merlin, some fucking warning," Daphne snapped, steadying herself on the wall beside her. "Who the fuck taught you to jump like that? You've been traveling with Theo and Blaise too much. Bloody hell." Daphne breathed in deeply through her nose, and Hermione had to giggle a little at the parallels to the Muggle equivalent of "Who taught you to drive?" After a long exhale, the witch stood tall and straightened her jacket. "All right, let's get this over with." Both witches tried to look as though they belonged there, and for Daphne, that was easy. She had already spent a great deal of time there this morning, but Hermione garnered a few looks, and upon catching her reflection in the window, she understood why. Her hair was an untamed mess, and her clothes, the fact that they were obviously being cleaned up with Scourgify, were still torn in places. Hermione thought that perhaps the only reason that they managed to make it down to the holding cells uninterrupted was because of the glare of determination on Daphne's face. It was only when the elevator had stopped its whirlwind journey on the deepest basement floor that her expression changed at all and switched to that of a predator seeking out its prey. Hermione wasn't sure if that prey was Draco or Blaise, but either way, she didn't want to risk getting her head bitten off by asking. Instinct told her that she was already on thin ice after the apparition incident. The ministry cells were a labyrinth of twists and turns drowning in black tile. Screams of "I don't know" pulled them to the right, but the stiffness of Daphne's shoulders told her all she needed to know about what to expect. Draco had told her Blaise was torturing people for information and that he had already killed 3 of them. Hermione could only pray that he had left someone that she would be able to recognize as useful. Blaise, Daphne hissed through the darkness as they rounded a corner. I brought you help. I don't need help. Blaise snarled, turning toward Daphne, but his eyes snagged on Hermione instead. The curse dropping from his victim, leaving them in silence instead. Thank fuck. If Draco sees, what the fuck? Draco roared from the end of the hallway. Think he already knows, Hermione whispered. Her eyes flew around to the prisoners in the cells surrounding them, desperate to spot someone, anyone worth interrogating as Draco stalked ever closer to them, his face angrier than she had ever seen him. Her, Hermione exclaimed, jabbing her finger at none other than Romilda Vane. Romilda shrunk back, hiding in the shadows of her cell with wide, scared eyes. Question her, Hermione stated again with confidence, meeting Draco's gaze with defiance. Draco glared at her, but turned and slipped into the witch's mind with ease. Romualda had never been able to grasp the concept of occlumency, and it seemed that Draco was not being gentle with her the way he had been with Hermione, because Romualda clutched at her head, whimpers falling freely from her like a melody. Blaise, Hermione, and Daphne all waited with bated breath. Silence stretched between them. Hermione's heart pounding in her chest, she needed Romualda to know something. If she didn't, Draco would send her away, and she doubted that even Blaise would be able to help her, and then she wouldn't be able to find her friend. Draco stood up straighter as he came back to himself, turning to Hermione with a look that made her ill to her stomach, because his earlier anger was gone and replaced with determination. Got it.